Now in this video we're going to do a solution to question 1b from the 2017 Leaving Cert paper, and it's inspired by a guy who was a kind of class messer and he was always doing crazy stuff. And the question, the start of the question says: Selon le texte de la section 1, question 2, Tibor fait souvent des choses stupides au lycée. So Tibor is the name of this boy, and il fait souvent des choses stupides au lycée, stupid things in secondary school. And now your job then is décrivez un incident amusant, décrivez un incident amusant qui s'est passé, which occurred, which happened, qui s'est passé dans votre école un jour, one day. So this is a récit question and kind of an essay question. This word here, récit, means an essay, if you like. And they always put this instruction in the Leaving Cert: votre récit peut être réel ou imaginaire. So it can be a real incident or an imaginary one. This is can be quite a difficult question because you've got to think up a story, and then of course it's going to depend, something that happened, it's going to depend on your knowledge of the passé composé and the imparfait. Now it says 90 mots environ, 90 mots, 90 words, but that really is never enough. So this time we're going to write about 170 or 180 words, about double, which is the equivalent of 3/4 of an A4 page. So now, as usual, I have kind of planned out what I'm going to say already. I've written a plan here behind me on the screen. And I always think in terms of an introduction and then a couple of development points. I have decided on 3 kind of little development paragraphs and then a conclusion here on the right hand side. So an introduction, développement 1, développement 2, développement 3, and a conclusion. And here's my question, just putting the question once more on the screen here on the right hand side, and describe an amusing incident. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that in school today a dog ran into the classroom, just a dog that was straying out in the kind of outside the school, just managed to make its way into our classroom, and everybody's kind of started screaming and there was a bit of commotion, and it was otherwise a kind of a fairly boring class. So I've tried to stick to vocabulary that I will have and I'll be able to use. So my intro now, zooming in a little bit, my intro up here, I'm going to say an interesting an incident happened at school today. I'm going to recycle some vocabulary from the text. I'm going to say un incident amusant here on the right hand side. Un incident amusant s'est passé, or it happened. Now there are a couple of ways of saying to happen. We can use the expression se passer, or we can use the expression se produire, se produire. So I'm going to talk about an incident très drôle, very funny, and se produire. So this is my little bit of planning vocabulary here. Now in this development point number 1 here, which is the second step, here's my first step of my intro, and my second step now is to create the first development point. So I'm going to say we had English at 9 o'clock with Mr. Burns, and English is a bit boring at the moment because we're just reading a novel. So I'm going to refer to nos cours d'anglais, and they're a bit boring at the moment, un peu ennuyeux. Ennuyeux is the word for boring, a key word here. And lire un roman is to read a novel. So there's my core vocabulary that I'm going to use for my development point number 1. Un cours d'anglais, ennuyeux, et lire un roman. And now my development point number 2, I'm going to say suddenly a little pup ran into the classroom. Now, un chien is a dog, so I could say that, but I'm actually going to use the word soudain is suddenly, and a little pup ran into the classroom. So I'm going to refer to un chiot, a little pup. I'm going to say he was very cute, a mignon, and a labrador is the same, and il était mignon, he was very, very cute. And I'm going to say, you know, the girls started screaming, right? Les filles. And then commencer, I'm going to use the verb commencer over here. And crier, to scream. Crier. Hurler is another verb we could use. But crier, to shout, if you like. They started shouting. And then I'm going to say Sally beside me, you know, she got up. Se lever. Se lever, the expression to get up, like in the morning, or to get up out of one's chair. Se lever. And she tried to catch the pup. Essayer de, to try, and attraper, to catch. And I've got to say the pup was confused. Il était désorienté. Désorienté, very easy expression to use because it's like the English, disoriented and désorienté. And then he was running around, courir, courir, and he was running around in all directions. Now, un sens, it can be a sense or it can be a direction, but dans tous les sens, he was running all over the place. So that's my development point number 2. And development point number 3 now, I'm going to say, then the pup ran back out into the corridor. So sortir is to go out, and ressortir is to go back out again. So sortir and then ressortir. Dans le couloir. Couloir is a corridor here. And then Sally and I, we ran after him. So I'm going to say, you know, we're going to use the word courir again, courir après. And then Mr. Burns didn't know what to do, so I'm going to use the verb savoir. Il ne savait pas quoi faire. Il ne savait pas quoi faire. Il ne savait pas quoi faire. And then a lady appeared at the entrance to the school, you know, a lady, une dame, and I'm going to use the verb apparaître, which is the verb to appear, apparaître, over here on the right-hand side. And she was looking for her dog. Elle cherchait son chien. Elle cherchait, she was looking for her dog. And he had got free from his lead. Now, we wouldn't have to use that, but I will just put it in this case. We could get away without it, but I'm going to say he had liberated himself from his lead. Now, une laisse is a lead, a feminine word, une laisse. But again, we could get away without that, but I'm going to put it in just to give us an extra little bit of vocabulary this time. Last but not least, now the conclusion. This incident was very funny. I'm going to say très drôle. Up at the top it was amusant, I think, and now we're going to say très drôle down here on the bottom. And it made our class very interesting. It made it more interesting than usual. So, rendre plus intéressant que. Rendre is to make in this context, plus intéressant que, plus long que, plus court que, longer than, shorter than, more interesting than. So, rendre plus intéressant que d'habitude. So that's my plan now. And before listening to the rest of this video and looking at my solution, I would encourage you to stop the video and just take my plan and see if you can using this vocabulary which I have created here, just see if you can write your own answer using my vocabulary as a kind of a stimulus. And then come back and look at my solution. Alors, je vais commencer par l'introduction. L'introduction, an interesting incident happened in school today. Un incident très drôle s'est produit aujourd'hui à l'école. S'est produit. Now this is occurred. If you want to say something occurred, s'est produit. S'est produit. The expression is just simply se produire. And in the passé composé, a one-off event. Un incident très drôle s'est produit aujourd'hui à l'école. And that is my introduction done now. And my first point of my development now is to say we had English at 9 o'clock with Mr. Burns, and English is a bit boring at the moment. We're just reading a novel. So we had English at 9 o'clock. Et comment ça se dit en français? Nous avions cours d'anglais à 9 heures avec Mr. Burns. We had. So like a describing situation here. So we're going to use the imparfait. The imparfait. Nous avions cours d'anglais, cours de français, cours de chimie, cours de physique. Nous avions cours d'anglais à 9 heures avec Mr. Burns. For the first 20 minutes of class, everything was normal. Pendant les 20 premières minutes de cours, tout était normal. Pendant les 20 premières minutes de cours, tout était normal. So during the first 20 minutes of class, everything was normal. And I'm going to say, honestly now, our English classes are a bit boring at the moment. Honnêtement, nos cours d'anglais sont ennuyeux en ce moment. Honnêtement, nos cours d'anglais sont ennuyeux en ce moment. In every class, it's the same thing. À chaque cours, in every class. À chaque cours, c'est la même chose. It's the same thing. We're reading a book. Now, I could say on lit un roman, or nous lisons un roman. It doesn't matter. On lit un roman, nous lisons un roman. We're reading a book. And I'm going to say very, very slowly. And it's been like that for weeks. C'est comme ça, it's like that, c'est comme ça depuis des semaines. So a couple of extra details I put into this little first development point, but that's it now, my first development. I'm going to go on to my second development. And suddenly a little pup ran into the classroom. So remember the vocabulary we're going to use now, soudain, and then un chiot. And he's he ran into the classroom. Soudain, un petit chiot perdu est entré dans la salle de classe. So soudain, un petit chiot perdu, lost, est entré dans notre classe. So perdu is lost or stray in this case. Soudain, un petit chiot perdu est entré dans la salle de classe. And how beautiful he was, how cute he was. Qu'est-ce qu'il était mignon? Now, if we take a simple sentence like il était mignon, he was cute. And then we put qu'est-ce que in front of it. That means how beautifully it really accentuates it. So qu'est-ce qu'il était, qu'est-ce qu'il est, how cute he is, how angry he is, or whatever it is. So that accentuates the expression il était mignon. Now we're going to say he was a little Labrador of a few months old. So c'était un petit Labrador âgé de quelques mois. Âgé de quelques mois would be aged a few months old. Âgé de quelques mois. And if we say à peine, that's hardly a few months old. So âgé d'à peine quelques mois. Now I'm going to say all the girls started screaming. Toutes les filles ont commencé à crier. Toutes les filles ont commencé à crier. Toutes les filles ont commencé à crier. And I'm going to say Sally, sitting next to me, got up and tried to catch him. Well, this is quite a tricky sentence here. Sally, assise à côté de moi, sitting next to me, assise à côté de moi. Au masculin, ça c'est assis à côté de moi, et assise à côté de moi au féminin, s'est levé, got up, s'est levé, et a essayé de, and tried to, et a essayé de l'attraper, dit L apostrophe, ça se réfère, ça c'est le complément d'objet direct qui se réfère au chiot, tried to catch him, de l'attraper. But he was running everywhere, in all directions. Mais il courait partout, but he was running everywhere. Mais il courait partout, dans tous les sens, in all directions, dans tous les sens. Mais il courait partout, dans tous les sens, tout désorienté, all disoriented. But we could leave that part out completely and just say, mais il courait partout, dans tous les sens, in all directions. Now the last part, I'm going to say now, then the pup ran out into the corridor and Sally and I ran after him. Mr. Burns didn't know what to do and a lady appeared looking for the dog. Then il est ressorti. Il est sorti, he went out. Il est ressorti, he went out again, en courant, running, dans le couloir, into the corridor. And I'm going to say Mr. Burns didn't know what to do. Mr. Burns ne savait pas quoi faire. Il ne savait pas quoi dire. He didn't know what to say. Il ne savait pas quoi faire. He didn't know what to do. And then I'm going to say he just remained still, kind of stunned. Il est resté là. He stayed there. Il est resté là, stupéfait, stunned. And then Sally and we ran after the dog. Sally et moi, on a couru après le chien. On a couru après le chien. We ran after, we have run. Le passé composé, on a couru après le chien. And then a woman arrived. Puis une dame est apparue. est apparue, puis une dame est apparue près de l'entrée. Now the verb apparaître is a funny one. It's kind of an invisible motion verb. So you perhaps, hopefully you'll know some of your motion verbs already in the passé composé. They are conjugated with être in the passé composé. And we've got aller, venir, arriver, rester, partir, and so on. And the verb apparaître is included, is also like an motion verb, even though it's a kind of a less frequent one. So, une dame est apparue près de l'entrée, close to the school entrance. And she was looking for her little dog. Elle cherchait son petit Rollo. We'll give him a name. She was looking for her little Rollo. So, elle cherchait son petit Rollo. And I'm going to say qui s'était libéré de sa laisse, who had got free of his lead. Qui s'était libéré de sa laisse, qui s'était libéré de sa laisse, who had got free of his lead. But we don't need to sweat that too much. We could get away without it. We could simply say, elle cherchait son petit chien. Elle cherchait son petit chien. And now I'm going to say that's it now with my development, and I'm going to go back now and finish with my conclusion. I'm going to say this incident was very funny and it made our English class much more interesting than usual. Cet incident était très amusant and it made our English class much more interesting than usual. Cela a rendu, in the passé composé, a rendu, has made, or it made, cela a rendu, it made, cela a rendu notre cours d'anglais beaucoup plus intéressant que. So, plus intéressant que, more interesting than usual. And that's our full answer. Let's read it one more time from the top down. It's about 180 words, which is perfect for this kind of task. 90 words is simply not enough nowadays, and this is perfect. Let's read from the top down. Un incident très drôle s'est produit aujourd'hui à l'école. Nous avions cours d'anglais à 9 heures avec Mr. Burns. Nous avions cours d'anglais à 9 heures avec Mr. Burns. Pendant les 20 premières minutes, tout était normal. Honnêtement, nos cours d'anglais sont ennuyeux en ce moment. À chaque cours, c'est la même chose. On lit un roman très, très lentement. C'est comme ça depuis des semaines. C'est comme ça depuis des semaines. It's been like that for weeks. Soudain, un petit chiot perdu est entré dans la salle de classe. Qu'est-ce qu'il était mignon! Qu'est-ce qu'il était mignon! How beautiful he was, how cute he was. C'était un petit labrador âgé d'à peine quelques mois. Toutes les filles ont commencé à crier. Toutes les filles ont commencé à crier. Sally, assise à côté de moi, s'est levée et a essayé de l'attraper. Mais il courait partout, tout désorienté, dans tous les sens. And the middle part we could leave out. We could just simply say, mais il courait partout, dans tous les sens. Puis, il est ressorti en courant dans le couloir. Monsieur Burns ne savait pas quoi faire. Il ne savait pas quoi faire. Il est resté là, stupéfait. Sally et moi, on a couru après le chien. Puis une dame est apparue près de l'entrée. Elle cherchait son petit rouleau qui s'était libéré de sa laisse. Cet incident était très amusant. Cela a rendu notre cours d'anglais beaucoup plus intéressant que d'habitude. And now I encourage you to study that answer very, very thoroughly and ask yourself, when you have finished it and highlighted key expressions, do you remember the key words? How do you say an incident occurred or happened? S'est produit aujourd'hui. How do you refer to a little pup? Un chiot, un chiot. How do you refer to boring? Ennuyeux. So study that and learn the key vocabulary.